How's your husband? How's your relationship with him? Did you take any further steps? She asked from the other side of the call. Wine smiled, typing on the keyboard. He is as handsome as always, you know. She saved the file and leaned against the chair. Cherylyn scoffed. Come on, tell me, are you still in the stage of formality? Well, yeah, kind of formality. He usually have busy schedule, she said with a shrug. Try to break the walls of ice around him. Yes, I'm thinking of opening up to him, but his charm makes me nervous. He is an introvert, so I must take a step. Her tone was filled with adoration. You seem already head over heels for him. Anyways, all the best, melt this ice. Wine chuckled. Of course, who wouldn't be head over heels for this handsome husband? They talked for a while and declined the call. Wine let out a sigh and glanced at the wall clock. She stood and made her way to the kitchen when the door opened, revealing exhausted Jungkook. You're back, she said with a smile. Jungkook stared at her beautiful eyes in a daze. Yeah, why are you still awake? He said in a state of trance and moved closer to her. I had to work on some urgent documents, she said, taking his white coat from his hands. Jungkook's trance broke as soon as her fingers brushed his hands. His face flushed, realizing how close they were standing. Go and freshen up, I'll set the table. She grazed her hand over his chest subconsciously. Jungkook nodded, feeling the warmth of her hand spreading throughout his body. Wine walked to the dining room while Jungkook shook his head and made his way to their shared bedroom. After a few minutes, they were sitting across each other and eating in silence when Wine broke the silence. How was your day? Quite hectic, he uttered without glancing at her. She hummed, sipping the water. It isn't easy being a doctor. He lifted his head and stared at her for a while before speaking relevantly. How was your day? He asked in a low tone and lowered his head, taking the fruit in fork and munching it. Wine smiled, propping her elbows on the table and resting her chin on her palms. Mine was fine. She stared at his handsome face. You must be tired, she said and brushed the back of her hand on his face. Jungkook lifted his head and stared at her. You're blushing, she spoke teasingly. I'm not. He picked the watermelon in the fork. You are. Look at your handsome face. He cut her in, shoving the fork in her mouth. Wine munched the watermelon while Jungkook internally facepalmed himself. How come he didn't realize he just gave her the same spoon that he used? I'm sorry, I didn't realize. I just used this fork. And he stopped pursing his lips. It's okay, I know you're thinking it was an indirect kiss, but you did kiss me on our wedding day. Besides, hugs and kisses are a part of daily routine. Jungkook's lips curled into a faint smile. He picked another piece of watermelon and shoved it in her mouth. I think you like this watermelon a lot. She nodded with a stuffed mouth. Jungkook looked at how adorable she was and felt his heart softened. It's sweet. She swallowed it and spoke again. Why don't you smile often? Your smile is so beautiful. She rested her palm on his cheek and said in a low tone. Jungkook's heart raced wildly, so did Wine's. My handsome husband, you look so cute when you blush. I don't blush. He held her hand that was on his cheek and said sternly. Look, even though your cheeks are red. She giggled. Jungkook raised his brows and pulled her towards him, causing her to bump into his hard chest. Wine gasped inaudibly and held his shoulders. Jungkook encircled his arm around her waist. Looks like my beautiful wife enjoyed kissing me, he said in a low tone. Wine felt nervous in their proximity. She bit her lips. He raised his brows and tightened his lip, urging her to speak. Yes, you look so cute when you blush. He glared at her and sat her on his lap. Wine sat with a lower head while Jungkook silently stared at her, taking in the sight of her beautiful face from inches away. Jungkook, he hummed in response. She lifted her head, feeling his burning gaze on her. Are you happy with our marriage? Do you want to work on our relationship? He passed her a questioning gaze. I mean, do you have anyone in your life or heart? Not at all. I don't have anyone, never even had. I was too busy in making my career to focus on anything else. I want to work on our relationship, but I have never been in any relationship, so I might not have experience in anything. This was the first time they had a brief conversation. It's okay, I'm not different from you. Together we'll make it, she said with a smile. He nodded and pressed his forehead against hers reluctantly. Few days later, presence behind her. Jungkook moved closer to her while Wine opened the fridge to take out the water bottle. Wine, as soon as he called her out and touched her shoulder, Wine jumped and gasped. The glass fell from her hand and subconsciously she stepped on the shattered glass. Watch out, he worriedly said. Wine hissed in pain. Jungkook lifted her in his arms and rushed to their shared bedroom. He sat her on the bed and crouched down, holding her ankle gently. No, don't, she said as he was about to pull out the glass from her foot. Stay still, nothing will happen. He spoke calmly. She shook her head vigorously. It will hurt more, she muttered with teary eyes. Jungkook's heart ached, seeing her tears. He pursed his lips. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you, he said, staring at her bleeding foot. You didn't. I was just too immersed in my thoughts that I didn't even hear when you opened the door and entered. Don't be sorry. As she completed, she hissed slightly. Jungkook pulled out the glass and walked to bring the first aid. He came back and crouched, placing her heel on his knee. Hey, your pant is staining. She tried to pull away, but he gripped her ankle. Stay still, tell me if it hurts. Wine stared at him without even blinking. He was gently treating her foot as if she was a delicate rose petal. Her lips curled up into a soft smile. The wound isn't that deep, but you should be cautious and not step down for 3 to 4 days. He lifted his head and looked at her. Their eyes met. Jungkook felt his heart beating out of his chest. Her eyes were indescribably beautiful. Thank you. Her voice snapped him out of his reverie. No need to thank me, he said and stood. Be careful with your steps next time. But how will I walk now? She said with a slight pout. Jungkook couldn't help but think how adorable she is. Don't worry, I'll carry you. Her face turned crimson. You have to look after your patients in the hospital. She spoke hesitantly. It's okay, someone else can attend them. He leaned towards her. You're my favorite and special patient. I can carry you for my whole life. He spoke huskily. His heartbeat tickled her face. Wine bit her lips, feeling her cheeks heat up. Jungkook cut in. I see you're shy. I haven't even done anything. He teased her, poking her nose like a kid. She passed him a glare. I'm not shy. I'm glad I will get the company of a handsome doctor. Anything for you, beautiful. She chuckled, shaking her head. He went to wash his hands. Wine was happy that he was opening up to her. She let out a sigh of relief. After a few moments, Jungkook came back. Handsome, I want to heat the food. Help me go to the kitchen. His heart races differently every time she calls him handsome. You don't have to bother, beautiful. I'll heat it and set the table. He scooped her in his arms and made his way to the kitchen. No, you are already exhausted after a hectic day. She caressed his jawline. Jungkook sat her on the chair in the dining room. Seeing your smile took away all my exhaustion. He said in a low tone and placed a long kiss on her forehead, taking her off guard. He pulled away and walked to the kitchen. Wine touched her forehead and smiled like a fool, feeling the warmth of his touch. Time skip. Jungkook had taken 3 days off to take care of Wine. Since then, they have got a lot more closer. Their feelings are developing deeper and deeper by the passing of time. Today, Wine's friends had invited Jungkook and her to the party. Jungkook didn't have many patients to attend, so he agreed to go with her, even though he was a bit anxious about it because he barely attended any parties. Now Wine was standing in front of the mirror wearing a white-colored knee-length cocktail dress. She had curled the edges of her hair and let it flow freely over her shoulders. She could feel Jungkook's burning gaze on her back. Why are you staring like that? She asked nervously, picking up the necklace. Jungkook walked towards her and stood behind her. He took the necklace from her hand and tousled her hair from her shoulder, putting the necklace around her neck. Wine's breath went uneven, feeling his hot breath fanning her neck. Can't we cancel going? He said, holding her hands from behind and resting his chin on her shoulder. Wine fixed her gaze at his reflection and raised her brows. Why, is there a problem? She asked in a low tone. Jungkook nodded and tightened his grip around her. What's it? I don't want anyone else to see you like this. You look breathtakingly beautiful. He muttered possessively and kissed her bare shoulder. Wine smiled, shaking her head. You have to bear with it. I also don't want anyone to see you devilishly handsome, but I can't help it. I have promised my friends. She leaned on his to face him. Shall we go? He nodded with a smile. Wan leaned closer and kissed him on the cheeks. You might seek a problem for yourself tonight, beautiful. Wan chuckled. I know my handsome husband is very innocent. He won't have any pervert thoughts. Jungkook raised his brows, holding her by the waist and pulling her closer. Don't provoke me, you couldn't escape them, he said, stroking her cheek with his thumb. Wan smiled, blushing slightly. Okay, we'll see that later. Now we are running out of time. He nodded and held her hand gently. Wan smiled and followed him out. In a few minutes, they arrived at the luxury resort. As soon as they entered, they were surrounded by Wan's friends. All the girls were drooling over Jungkook. Wan held his arm possessively and glared at them with an unpleasant expression. Let's go, she whispered into his ear, holding his arm firmly. Sure, my lady. He leaned and whispered into her ear. Everyone stared at them with envious gaze while Wan dragged him towards Cherylin and her fiancé. Evil eyes of you both look so beautiful together. Cherylin clung to her fiancé, who was exchanging greetings with Jungkook, who had his usual cold expression on his face. Wan just smiled and tugged on Jungkook's coat. He leaned down to her. Handsome, you shouldn't have worn black. His gaze softened. You shouldn't have worn white, beautiful. She chuckled lightly, staring at him with an affectionate gaze. They were lost in each other's eyes until Cherylin cleared her throat. You can continue your romance elsewhere. Wan looked away with a flustered face while Jungkook's face turned cold as soon as he looked away from Wan. Cherylin's fiancé immersed Jungkook in a conversation while Wan was dragged away by Cherylin. After interacting with a few of Cherylin's friends, they urged to play truth and dare, but Wan somehow managed to escape. She was looking around for Jungkook when she felt a pat on her shoulder. Here you are, she said as soon as she saw Jungkook behind her. She held his hand in both her hands and moved closer to him. Where were you? Some annoying girl had stuck up on me like a leech. Wan's expression turned grim. Which girl? She asked, looking behind him with dark eyes. Did she touch you? I'll slash her throat. Jungkook smiled and shook his head. No way, no one dares to come this close to me. He held her and pulled her closer. She let out a sigh of relief. Still, I'll teach her a lesson. She spoke through gritted teeth. Jungkook looked around when he clenched his fist. Why does he keep staring at you? I'll gouge out his eyes. She looked at the direction of his gaze where a guy was staring at Wan. He passed her a smile as soon as she saw him. I know him, we had to work together. She fixed her gaze on Jungkook, who was burning in rage. Bastard. Wan held his face and turned towards her. Don't ruin your mood. His expression softened at the sight of her puffed cheeks. All the couples walked to the dance floor, dragging Wan and Jungkook along with them. Wan stood dumbfounded until Jungkook encircled his arms around her waist. I don't know how to dance. Can you dance? She asked worriedly. Yes, I can. Just follow my steps. He held her hand and wrapped around his neck. What if I step on you? He chuckled. It's okay. She was anxiously looking at other couples while slowly moving with him. Hey, calm down. He pulled her even closer. Their nose touched. She exhaled a long breath. How can you dance so nicely? I mean, you don't seem that type of person. I know I was a bookworm, but dance was the only thing I had interest in. Wan nodded with amusement and stared at him with a smile. Why are you smiling like that? He asked with raised brows. You keep surprising me. I didn't think you would like dance or would be jealous or possessive type. He smiled, rubbing his nose against hers. Even I didn't know I would be jealous or possessive type. It's all because of you. You make me feel things I didn't know existed. I want to keep you all to myself. I don't want anyone else to have a glance at you. I don't know what's wrong with me. I was never this type of person. He spoke calmly, staring at her with passion. Do you think you love me? I want to wake up with you beside me every morning. I want to spend my evenings staring at you across the dining table. I want to share every detail of my day with you and hear yours. I want to laugh with you and fall asleep with you in my arms. If this is love, then yes, I love you. His voice was as gentle as the comforting warmth of a cozy fireplace on a chilly night. Wan's eyes were moist with glistening tears. She smiled, inching closer to him and pressed her forehead against his. Jungkook tightened his grip around her and tilted his head towards her. He leaned closer until their lips met. Wn's breath went unsteady as she felt him severing her lips. He held her by the back of her neck with one hand and deepened the kiss. His breath tickled her cheeks. She closed her eyes, clutching his collar. Everything seemed to fade around them until the hall erupted with applause and cheers. Wan fluttered her eyes and pulled away with a shy smile. She buried her face in his chest as everyone teased them. Jungkook smiled, caressing her hair gently. Time skip. Wan and Jungkook didn't even realize how they came so close to each other. Their love for each other is limitless. Now Wan was with Cherilyn in the hospital as she hadn't feeling well for a few days, so she called Cherilyn and told her to accompany her to the hospital. I'm so happy for you, Wan. When are you informing Jungkook? Is he ready to have a baby? She asked excitedly, walking beside her. Wan shrugged her shoulders with a smile. I don't know. He must be happy, but I'm still nervous to tell him. Cherilyn held her arm and squeezed it gently. Don't be nervous, he'll be happy, I bet. Why not tell him now? We are in his hospital anyway. Wan shook her head. I'll surprise him later. Cherilyn nodded and followed her silently until Wan stopped in her tracks, hearing a familiar voice. Wan, Jungkook was surprised to see her. He just had a meeting with senior doctors and was about to go back to his cabin. Are you okay? Why are you in the hospital? He asked wearily and cupped her face as soon as he moved closer to her. Yeah, I'm fine. She held his hand. Jungkook glanced at Cherilyn for confirmation, who nodded in response. Let's go to my cabin. He held her hand. Wan glanced at Cherilyn. I'll take my leave then, she said and walked away. Jungkook made his way to his cabin, followed by Wan. He closed the door behind them and stood in front of her. You were leaving without meeting me. I thought you might be busy. I didn't want to interrupt your work. She caressed his face softly. You could have called me and asked me. He glanced at the file in her hand. What is this file if you're fine? Wan puffed her cheek and rested her head on his chest. I wasn't feeling good for a few days, so I thought to have a checkup. She stopped and placed her chin on his chest, locking eyes with him. I just got to know that I'm pregnant. Jungkook's eyes widened with surprise. What? You mean I'm going to be a father? He asked in a surprised tone. Wan nodded and stood straight. My goodness, I'm so happy. He muttered and swept her off the floor. Wan gasped, holding his shoulders while he thrilled her. She giggled, hiding her face in his neck. I love you, she muttered as he sat her on the desk and let out a deep breath. He tucked the hair strand behind her ear and kissed her softly.